Hello, welcome to Women in the Nude podcast, where we bear it all except for our bodies. We'll leave that to your imagination. I am so excited to introduce KARENA Dawn. She is our guest this week. She is a badass. I mean, she does everything. She's a mental health and self-care activist. She's a physical wellness expert. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's the founder of Tone It Up, one of my favorite wellness products. Last but not least, she is the host of a podcast called The Big Silence, which is vital for everybody. You should definitely check it out if you haven't already. And is there anything that you don't do, Karina?
I know that it makes my husband nervous. He's like, "Can you just slow down for a little?" I'm like, "No, because I have so much to say and so much to do and share, and like, I am passionate about everything that I do,
Nice.
and it only comes from passion and drive, and then connecting with other humans like
Yeah,
you."
appreciate that. Yeah, it's refreshing and it's wonderful. I think your commitment shines through. I think that's yeah. And I love that I love that your husband's like, take a second, give a moment. My husband does the same thing. So
I know,
yeah.
but it's and I love that you have your dog next to
I know
you.
she's gonna hop on the couch every 5 seconds. So sorry about that.
Calm mom and five, I get it.
Yeah. Well, how did you get started in the wellness field? I guess would be the initial launch, right?
Yeah, so I would say I got started in wellness even as a little girl,
Okay.
where I didn't know I was getting in wellness, but I ran my first half marathon when I was 11, 12.
Wow.
And yeah, in school, they're like, "Do you want to train for a half marathon?" I'm like, "Sure." And I hated it at the time, hated it. But then through my teenage years, and we'll talk about it, here or more on my podcast too. Just, um, I had a mother who was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was very young, 12 years old, and I went through my own decade of depression, drug misuse. No one was talking about it back then. I grew up in the 90s
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and 2000s, and no one was talking about it. So I went through my own situational depression, and I finally, in my early 20s, once I lived in California, I'm originally from Indiana, moved to California, and I had this like breaking point. I was hanging out in Hollywood. It's like, oh, the parties are way better in LA and so let me move there. And just a breaking point of, okay, is this what you're meant for? Or are you meant to do something greater? Like, I thought I would develop a mental health condition like my mom. And I realized, you know what? I will pave my own path in my future. And it's like, when was I happiest? And it's like, that half marathon that I hated when I was a little girl. But I was like, but when I crossed that finish line and I accomplished something, it made me feel really good. And so it's like, okay, so I'm going to sign up for a triathlon. I'm going to start surfing the ocean, trade surfing for Hollywood clubs. And I just got back into fitness because even as a little girl, I would watch my mom before she was diagnosed. She would work out to Jane Fonda and Kathy
I
Smith and
love that.
Denise Austin. And I was like, one day I want to do that. So I brought fitness back in and started Tone It Up.
That's awesome. It's hard, I'm sure. I mean, that I couldn't imagine going through something like that, and it's powerful to see that you took control of that, even at a young age, because a lot of people can't do that, and so you are an incredible inspiration. Thank God we have people like you to kind of show that that's something that can be done. Um, and I mean, yeah, wellness in general, physical fitness, all the endorphins, helps you sleep, helps you process things. It's so necessary. I mean, this must be maybe too broad of a question, but what's your favorite part of being in this field?
Sharing how physical movement is not just the way that you look, but it's the way that you feel.
Yeah.
And that's even like when Kat and I started Tone It Up, it was at a time where fitness was like very regimented and you do but then you realize like you really are moving your body because you need to every day to get those endorphins that you talk about,
Yeah.
to get like to make yourself feel really good. And I think that's my favorite part, and that's why I like my main goal now with Tone It Up, with fitness, meditation, mental health, is getting people to move their bodies through sports, through working out, whatever you love. You can go, you don't have to do our workouts. I mean, I want you to, but whatever it is to make you feel good. And so I think that's the best part, is just enhancing each other's lives
Yeah.
as a
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say is, yeah, you're creating a community, which is so important.
yeah.
Um I would imagine, just like my industry, there's, I'm sure, some dark sides to the fitness world. Is there like a thing that you wish would just kind of disappear, or something that you think that that community needs to work on?
Mm, I'm sure you have
I do.
a lot of pressure, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, please. I'm all for that.
So I feel like it has, over the past few years, with diversity, inclusivity, and
Hmm.
all of that. I definitely went through a lot of pressure in the beginning, and a lot of pressure, even being in the fitness industry. And then if you lose weight or you gain weight
Yeah.
or this, oh, what's wrong with her? Like, is she okay? And even in 2020, I don't know, I don't weigh myself, but probably gained at least 30 pounds. But I was going through the pressure of my mom passing away, and I was her caretaker. And then we know what happened in 2020
Hmm.
and all of that. And like your stress hormones change the way your body works. And I wasn't taking care of myself, but then the outside people's comments, you know, telling you like, what's wrong with her? Like, she's a bit,
Right.
there's that pressure. But I think there has to be, within fitness, as long as, I don't know, there has to be more acceptance of the different seasons that women go through, and men, everyone.
Yeah.
We go through, and then just less judgment. There's so much judgment.
Right. To look a certain way, to act a certain way. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to be that walking picture of what society's, view of the perfect body must be, because you're in that field. I totally get it. And then obviously that means that that's not the case. I don't want that to be the case, but yeah, those things can be there. I've got PCOS, and in my journey, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, I went to about 17 gynecologists. Um, I had gained roughly almost 70 pounds in less than a year. I ate healthy. I was, yeah, physical. I liked working out. I did what I could, and it was so frustrating and confusing because nobody could tell me what was wrong. And in fact, it kind of felt like gaslighting. Everyone was telling me that it was either in my head, or it was my fault. I must be lying. I had a doctor tell me that I must be lying, that I must be eating like shit, and not doing what I'm saying that I'm doing, because obviously the results, obviously the way that I looked was reflecting that that wasn't the case. So I took one endocrinologist. She was just kind of asking me some questions, and she's like, "Yeah, I need to make sure with blood tests and what have you, but it sounds like you've got PCOS." And I had no idea what that was. Nobody had ever, nobody talked about that. I'd never even heard what polycystic ovary syndrome was. And so that was the start of my journey. That was the start of trying to figure out my hormone imbalances, trying to figure out how my diet truly would connect to physical fitness, and it was a whole process. And actually having my son, who's 2.5 now, having him helped reset my body and my hormones, which, I mean, your body's amazing. It's an incredible experience, and so I'm thankful for where I am now. But in that process, the media, I grew up in the industry, so that was all documented. All those changes were documented, whether I liked it or not. And the assumptions and the type of character that I was playing, a lot of people had the opinion that the way that I was looking didn't reflect my character. So you have all these, you know, outside voices that can really just really fuck with you. It was yeah, it was a hard time. So people like you being open and willing to share and having that viewpoint is really helpful for everybody because you can see that it's possible and it's possible to work through it.
Yeah, and it doesn't. You're not always going to be perfect, and when it comes to what your body is, your hormones, your this, and just think aloud. I always say this, and I say it all the time. Just be a good damn
Yeah.
person, and go be a good person. Allow yourself to go through the ebbs and flows. I mean, everything that we go through, from career to raising a family or
Mhm.
relationships or friendships, like it's all going to shift and have new experiences. And so I think just with, especially, I mean, you're way more in the public spotlight than I am. So you're probably
Well,
so much more. But just allowing us to be so we can all just live. I mean,
yeah.
we get to wake up and be here. And why can we not support each other?
Yeah. Especially women. I've never really understood that. I mean, I do and I don't. I know how it happens. I know why it happens, but it's just such a it sucks, you know. Um, and that's why creating platforms like this, creating community like this, that's why that was really important for me. Um, and the big silence is, um, it's just, I mean, it's such a wonderful part of you. Um, is it is it something that you felt drawn to do? How did that come about? Did somebody ask you, maybe you should do a podcast, or is it something that was just kind of a dream?
I never wanted to do a podcast. I was No, I mean, Kat and I would tone it up. We were like the first people on like fitness people on Instagram and YouTube in 2009, 2008, 2009. And then podcasts were coming out. I was like, no, we're doing so much already. But then I was just getting so many messages because I started talking about my mental health journey and my mom's. And so all of these messages are coming in through email or DM, like, can you talk about this? Can you talk about this? And I was like, oh man, okay, I got to talk about this
Yeah.
because you're community, right? Like, and we're here for each other. And so I was like, I guess I'm going to start a podcast. And then, I mean, so with the Big Silence, it's a foundation,
Hmm.
nonprofit, and we have programs that support the youth, which is because when I was a kid, I didn't have any support. So I combined sports and mental health
Yeah.
with our youth programming. And then we have the podcast, we have our crisis text line, and we have corporate wellness, and we have our therapy for all program because therapy is very
Yeah.
expensive. Like, most insurance policies don't cover it. So we have a scholarship program with that. So I just realized, I'm like, what am I doing? Husband was again like, what are you doing? I'm like, there's a need. So I'm going to be there for it. And so that's how the Big Silence started. We've got we've toned it up, like the fitness aspect and the meditation, but then there's more needs for full transformation, body, mind, spiritual. Like, you have to provide everything. So
Yeah.
then the Big Sun launched in 2021, and it was in dedication to my mom. So she passed away in 2021,
I'm sorry.
and I,
Yeah.
uh, um, and I was her caretaker the last 5 years, along with my husband. I let her know, like, she was the stigma with mental health. She never wanted to talk about her diagnosis. She never wanted to take medication. She never wanted to do anything. And I let her know that um, my that I was launching this foundation in honor of her, so that we can end that stigma, so that we can talk about mental health and make it a normal conversation, because
Oh,
it is.
yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And I'm sure the
Yeah.
feedback has been awesome. everything that I've seen, it has been. Um, yeah, people love what you do. Um, so from a business perspective, with Tone It Up, I, like I said, I love your products anyway. What was the development like? How, like, what was the process of developing your first product?
Gosh, there's so many. I mean, it's been 14
It's so
years.
crazy.
Wow. So we started out just wanting to be a community for women who make movement fun. And then we started getting those messages again, like of, oh, what protein do you like, and this and that. And we're like, well, actually, because we had already developed a nutrition program, and then we're like, well, there's actually no proteins out there that are in line with our nutrition program,
Mhm.
and so we developed our own. Yeah, it's plant based and it's got great clean ingredients, just the right amount of protein for a woman. So we set out in that mission to develop that, and through I'm friends with someone who does a lot of protein development and owns like a big company, and does all the flavoring. The Pickett family, shout out. And so they owned Muscle Milk back in the
Oh
day.
wow, yeah,
Yeah, they sold that. But now, like, I wasn't a big Muscle Milk fan. It tasted really good, but it wasn't quite like what back then.
yeah,
We work with them still now as our own toned up protein that you can get in Target and
yeah,
Walmart.
yeah,
Yeah. So the development process, coming up with flavors, innovation, working with a team. The Pickets have like a great flavoring company, and being like, we want it to taste like this. This is what a woman wants. She wants this vanilla flavor and these different ingredients. Um, so it's a lot of back and forth, but we have such a great team behind us, just helping us formulate everything.
nice. Yeah, I find that so fun. I have a really good friend who's a food scientist, and she can do all these amazing things, and all the little things that go into it. You know, just emulsion yeah, I don't understand it still, but I love listening to her talk about it.
I know. I'm just like, I want it to taste this way, and then you sample it. And you're like, no, tweak this, but I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But no, you explain it to the food scientist, and then they come back and they like create this masterpiece, and you're like, there it is. That's
That's
it.
so cool. Yeah, that's really fun. Um, as far as like, so I think that your chocolate products, like the way that that tastes, is great because I've always had an issue with some protein shakes and just the way that they taste. Like the chocolate can just taste like gross, or the vanilla can taste weird and artificial, and that sort of thing. And I think that, yeah, you've mastered that. So I have a major sweet tooth, and I'm keto, so I've had to really. I mean, like I love baking and cooking and that sort of thing. So I've been experimenting and figuring out how I can get what I want, uh, but in a way that works for my diet. Do you have a sweet tooth? Like, or do you have like something that you're like a guilty pleasure?
I'm opposite of sweet
Okay.
tooth. I am salty and satiating. Like, give me a good cheese plate.
Mm-hmm.
Charcuterie.
Keto. I'm all about that life.
I never crave sweets. I'll have a bite. If we go out to dinner with our friends and they like get chocolate cake or something, I'm like, okay, I'll have one bite.
Yeah.
That's it. Cheese plate.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. My issue is that it's both. Yeah, I swing both ways. Um, And okay, so I guess the perfect body then, right? The These things kind of go hand in hand, like we were talking about earlier. Society's perfect body changes. I feel like every decade it looks different. And the physical fitness world, they kind of change with it, because I feel like they almost have to, at least in my experiences. Like a woman, working out, trying to look a certain way when I was younger, and now I'm at a moment where I feel powerful and just feel strong. But now it's the butt. which I love. I love leg day. I'm all about leg day. I'm all about getting that butt. So I've got no issue there. But um, growing up, everything was about being a rail. Like you didn't want a butt. You didn't want any of that. And now you do.
It's so interesting. I remember this memory with my grandma, and we were going through a department store when I was a little girl, and Kate Moss was on a Calvin. I don't know if you have those
Yeah.
like memories that are ingrained in your mind, and you're like, wow, that really fucked me up. Uh, Moss on a Calvin Klein ad, black and white. It's a store called Lazarus in Indiana. I don't think it exists
Yeah.
anymore, but my was like, oh, look at the rolls in her stomach. And this was the waif era,
Right.
right? Like Kate Moss weighed 0 pounds.
Yeah.
And that was like what was so messed up in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, my grandma
Mm-hmm.
looking at Kate Moss, and there she's like, look at the rolls in her stomach. And that's
Yeah.
when it started. That thought of like, oh, I didn't see that. And so, yeah, the different eras of what is expected of a
Yeah.
woman in the nude, because Kate was
In
almost,
the
I'm
nude.
pretty
Yeah.
sure,
Pretty much.
she was covering boobs with her arm, and that judgment on her. And that's like, wow, I think that's in different generations, like
Yeah.
how it all changes.
My grandma, ironically, is also very much that way. She's always been tiny. Her diet has always been terrible. I don't even know how she survives. She eats nothing except for chocolate, which is, I guess, where I get that sweet tooth from. Um, but she's always been really tiny, and she's always really cared about that. And it's this expectation of what you need to look like, and that was always sad for me. My mom would explain that to me growing up. But then I also had that pressure in the industry in a slightly different way, but it was still very prominent. But my grandma still, she'll, same thing, see somebody walk by or see a poster of somebody. Or for me, what's worse is we're watching TV, and somebody that comes on the TV that she thinks is in her mind unpleasant to look at. She'll actually make like almost like she sounds like she's gonna throw up. She's so vocal about it, and I it I can't say that it hasn't affected me. I've worked through that now, but growing up and now getting it from social media, and it being instilled in you when you're young, it's a powerful thing. Um, yeah, it really is a powerful thing. And I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but that doesn't mean that boys don't face that as well in their own way. And I just want to make sure that that is something that he'll never care about, that it'll be about being healthy and strong versus you know
Yeah. Do you think, and this thought just came in my head, as daughters,
hmm
we obviously have that pressure, and I also, as a teenager, with the pressure, I had bulimia,
hmm
a brief stint of it, but all of my friends did,
right.
and that comparison is not okay. And but do you think that men suffer from it in a different way?
Yeah.
Like, what is pressure? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I just like thinking like because men are so more prone to keep their emotions and their
hmm
feelings in silence than women are like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I just wonder like what that's
I definitely think so. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of my husband per se, but he has a great metabolism, and he's
yeah.
6'5", and he's never had to deal with putting on weight. But in that same, the flip side is that he was never able to really put on weight until he got into his late 20s, early 30s. And I think there's definitely like he didn't need it. I've known him since childhood, like that he didn't need to be self-conscious, but there is that like flip side with guys, like putting on weight, putting on muscle, looking a certain way, looking um strong. which he always has, but in his mind, sometimes he wasn't gaining weight like his brothers or the people around him. And yeah, I think it definitely affects guys too. Um, yeah, just in different ways, but it's all an issue with mental health, you know, um, and this whole weight issue, the scale, um, it it doesn't mean that there aren't so many people that want to put on weight, and that is
Yeah.
something that I think we as a society still need to be aware of. That pendulum is so interesting because I think we hear it in songs, this whole like almost negative connotation to like a skinny bitch, right? It's like, oh no, she's way too skinny. Now it's another issue. I don't know if you've heard that, but I mean, I've heard lots of things like that. And then you're like, well, maybe genetically she has a hard time putting on weight.
Yeah.
Um, so more so, I guess it's just stop judging women's bodies to a degree that is unhealthy. That shouldn't be the focus.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, imagine how much more peace if you had to stop worrying. I mean, we eat
Hmm.
healthy-ish, I say.
Yeah.
I was at a race this past weekend in Houston, so when I knew I was eating a meat plate, they like barbecue in
Oh
Texas.
yeah.
So there was French fries, and someone's like, "Oh my God, you eat French fries?" I was like, "I do. I don't eat 3 trays of
Right.
them, but I eat what I
Yeah.
want." But like, it's so shocking. I'm like, but I also eat a lot of healthy things too.
Yeah. Balance and moderation. It's definitely
Yeah.
definitely the key with everything. I mean, with life in general. Yeah.
Weight, mental health, physical fitness, work, relation, like
Hmm.
everything is. I was like, my friend Jewel, but you should have her on your
I'd
podcast.
love to. Yeah.
She's incredible, but she taught me the word harmony. Like she's like, I don't like balance.
Okay.
It's like, okay, harmony. Figuring that out now. But yeah.
Something to chew on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is, I guess, the goal, right? Harmony for things to be, yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you won't have the balance in a day when you think of like when I think of the word balance, I think of like this perfectionism that isn't attainable or sustainable. And so with balance, it's like, hey, one day I'm gonna be this way,
Hmm.
one season I'm gonna be this way, and the next I'm another way. But somewhere in there I find the harmony that it's okay and I'm doing my best at that moment.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I I I see that. Maybe I'll start use. Maybe I will start using harmony instead of balance now.
Every day and every minute and like
Yeah,
too much of a scientific equation of like, am I in balance or am I
yeah,
not? No, it's just I'm in the moment right now.
yeah, yeah. The goal versus beating yourself up for not being in that zone all the time. Yeah, yeah. Um, I I love being at the age that I am now. Um,
Health.
I am 27. Um, I've always been the youngest in any of my circles, which I've never had an issue with. I've always just had older friends and people in my life. Now it's weird to be at some time, sometimes I'm the oldest one in the room, and I don't know how I feel about that anymore. By the way, I am under no circumstances do I feel old or do I think that 27 is old. But I feel the strongest that I've ever felt since becoming a mom, since putting mental health and physical health first, which is so cool. And I want that for everyone. I
Yeah.
really, really want that for everyone. And I know it's a journey. Um, and it's your own journey. You need to find that. You can't, someone telling you versus you experiencing it. They're so different.
Yeah.
Um,
27. That's a great age. That's the age I was when I started Tone It Up.
Okay, there you go.
The age, um, I mean, I'm 42
You
now,
don't look
and
42.
thank
Definitely
you.
don't.
I'm 42. I still feel like I'm 27 and like energized and having fun and like, just living life. It's old cliche, age is a number, but it really
Yeah.
is. But 27 is beautiful. It's all about mindset too. And you, because of your background and how you've had a career since when? Like,
uh, 3.5, 4. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so but yeah.
Yeah.
So you a lot, and I'm excited to dive into that more
Yeah,
when we
absolutely.
talk.
Yeah, I'm an open book in that way. Um, do you feel like you had an aha moment at any point that you can kind of pin as like the strongest you felt as a woman? Is there like a moment?
My first moment was at 21, 22, and I have a memoir out. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's called The Big Silence as well, about growing up with a mentally ill mom.
I
And
actually have it.
there,
I haven't read it yet, but I have it. I do.
okay.
Yeah.
So had this is my first aha moment when I stopped being a victim.
Mm.
And after, yeah, the 3-day bender in LA and Hollywood, and I'm sure with your experience, you've been at the
Yep.
clubs and the house parties, and you know what's going on. And just realizing like this is not who I am.
Hmm.
So I need to stop being a victim. I'm not going to end up like my mother or my grandfather with schizophrenia. Like I know that my mind is in a good place, and this is like you're either going to die
Hmm.
if you continue this path, or you can change. And so at that moment was my first aha, where whatever God, spirit, higher power came in and said, "Karena, you are not meant to be on the path that you are." And that was my shift. So there was that aha. And I think that was my biggest aha. That was my biggest change in life. And that's early
Yeah.
20s. Like, but again, like you having starting your career at 3.5, I started taking care of myself basically at 11, 12. And so I just forged forward and changed my life. And it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
I always say it's harder to change for the positive than keep on the path that you have been stuck on.
Right.
Because we can always keep on the path of self sabotage, sadness, victimhood, or you can work really hard and change that path. And it's worth it. It's like, it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done. And, aside from even building a brand for 14 years and a company and doing, something great like that most people don't accomplish. And it was that shift and that change, that aha moment as a 20 something year old that I was like, I'm going to change my path. And if I can do it back then, because I
Yeah.
was just a little hooligan, like I was defiant. No one could tell me what to do. Like, and still no one can tell me what to do. Ask my husband. He's like, calm down.
It's suggestions.
But yeah, might I suggest that you do this? No, I'm like, nah. But uh, yeah, it's that aha of like you control your thoughts, you
Hmm.
can control your decisions, control being a good person or a bad person,
Yeah.
control being respectful and respected, control your boundaries.
Yeah.
Uh, It's all in your hand.
Yeah. The boundaries thing is huge. That's something that I've
Mm.
known and finally have kind of put into practice, and that is so difficult. That's difficult with friendships and family, and I mean, yeah, That's a
People hate,
you would.
people hate boundaries.
Oh yeah,
People,
people. Oh my gosh, yeah. Um,
but that's like, and now with all of my friends, as we're like older and have like all been in therapy for like a decade or so, we're like, I'm going to set this boundary. And now we're like, yes,
yes,
we respect each other's boundaries. We get it.
yeah,
Like, we're like, boundaries are so important.
so important. And yeah, I
And
love
it's,
it in practice. Um,
yeah.
I really do. It's been so healthy. And yeah, I mean, the older you get, the less you care, and hopefully the good ways, and hopefully you care more about the the good things, the things that you should. But there is a power to being okay with being disliked for something. Because I think that
What do
was
you, specifically for you, was your hardest boundary that you had to set?
um lots. I guess if I if I could pick one, it would be, well, I have a lot recently. One is one is politics with people.
Mm,
That one is, and I don't even necessarily want to really go down that road.
we won't go there.
Yeah, but lightly, as far as boundary goes, is it's hard. It's hard to be in positions where you disagree with anyone, but especially with people that you're close to. So that's been one that's been difficult, which is there's so much in this life that's wonderful and so many things that we can talk about. Can we please just not talk about this subject? That is my boundary. Um,
Mhm.
because, you know, in that particular situation, there is no benefit. Um,
Yeah.
so things like that, taking topics that are, taking topics off the table as a boundary for hopefully everybody's well-being. Um, that's something. Oversharing is something, which is ironic now that I'm starting a podcast. But oversharing, feeling the need.
I'm, I've been told I overshare a lot. But I'm like, whatever.
That's how I've
So,
always felt. Is like that whatever, and then I've kind of been like, everything is so public for me that
yeah.
it's okay to have things that people, there are things that you don't have to share if you don't want to. The obligation of giving everything is so that's been one that I've been kind of toying with, because with something like this, open book, I want to be open. I want to be able to have so many different lines of conversation, just for people, for a community, for myself. um,
Mhm.
but it's picking those moments and knowing what you can keep to yourself, and um, what will be beneficial for you and others to hear and to see. So that's an interesting one.
I think you'll figure that out. I
Yeah.
mean, at this point, I just talk about everything. And even, yeah, I had to take this personality test for a company that we were that was investing in us. And one of the things was I'm an overshare. I was like, but it also has said that I like to, for work and my career, I have to give back. Yeah. So got it, got it. I overshare and I like to give back and help people. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
whatever.
bummer. If that's what you're gonna get knocked for, I think you're safe. Oh, that's
But with
funny.
you and your, you're gonna be end up talking about all sorts of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
even with my husband, everyone through social media was like, "Oh, Karina and Bobby, the best marriage ever. You're so happy." This and like, no, we're in couples therapy. Like, marriage is
Yeah.
not supposed to be perfect. And this, like,
No,
and so I it all, and you know,
I think
business is
that's,
not easy.
yeah, absolutely. I think that talking about relationships is healthy. Like I have a wonderful marriage, but nothing's perfect. It's never perfect. We spend almost 24/7 together, which I love, and a lot of couples can handle that. Um,
Yeah,
we work together, we do all the things together, and it works really well for us.
yeah,
But we've always made sure that you know growth and communication are so big that we need to work on our communication all the time. We're good at it, but you can you can backslide in that way, right? Um, Making it a priority, making sure you're both, um, that you're both good in every aspect of life is just so important. And learning how to adjust with time, because inevitably we do change. Different
Yeah.
experiences affect us. Parenthood, that's a huge new world. And I mean, I feel like we've done a really great job of navigating, and I'm very proud of us. But I think what's great is that we both are under the impression that it's always a work in progress. That, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. And have that be like, I will say, like, because I grew up in such a different household than, with a mother who was mentally ill and in and out of the house and having to learn to take care of myself at a young age. And then Bobby grew up in a household in Long Island where you didn't talk about anything. And then him, like, oh my gosh, we don't agree on this. I'm like, just like with your friends, you don't talk politics,
Mm-hmm.
respect whatever your view is, we can still be friends. We have
Yeah.
to agree to agree. And that's in friendships and business and certain things. Again, goes back to just don't be an asshole.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and I think just also learning how people communicate, because everybody communicates differently. Learning what's going to be the best for each situation, because people don't communicate like you do, and that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
She's a 165-pound Great Dane, and she doesn't know her size. She thinks she's this tiny lap dog, so she's pushing me over here. So
I think she's one of my 5-pound
I
Pomeranians.
love that. I mean, that, yeah. I feel like she's like the elephant and the mouse. She would be terrified of
Yeah,
the little dogs. Um,
she would.
yeah, she's got lots of anxiety. She's got all of her own little issues. Okay, lady. Uh, we kind of spoke about your book a little bit, but how was it writing a book?
Yeah. So I've written 2 other books that were New York Times bestsellers for tone up and
Nice.
fitness and nutrition and all that. But this was a memoir that I thought it was really a personal passion and project because when the last 5 years of my mom's life, and my husband and I, again, like newly married, and uh, I always wanted to do a memoir because I wanted to speak out about life's imperfections and how you can come from something that's not great, but you can,
Yeah.
you can go on in life and do something great for yourself. And so when the doctors told me that my mom had 2 weeks to live, I just started writing a book. And then I shifted her from Seattle, where she was in a hospital, and moved her to California, where I was living at the time, and started taking care of her, changed her health, what she was eating, nutrition, everything. But I thought she was going to pass away quite quickly. And I just started writing because I wanted to, it's like journaling. It
Hmm.
was healthy mentally because journaling is a really important thing. And then I thought I would have this memoir done in a year. But then the transition and the relationship with my mother and the mother-daughter relationship and everything kept shifting. The story kept going. And, I worked on it in nights and weekends. And, I'm still running a company at this
Yeah.
point. And so it just took longer. And then I finished the book. And then my mother passed. And so then I wrote an epilogue because it had a really happy ending. She was healthy. And then there was the epilogue. And, you know, the, again, I always put a lot on myself that I
Hmm.
can handle everything, but like reliving, like, so I have all of my journals from when I was a kid,
Wow.
stacks of, and through like moving to California at 18 and all of the places I've moved, I've kept every journal, every piece of poetry, every thought. So I was able to go back with that and then also interviewing with my sister, my dad. and family members to recap. I'm like, I kind of remember this. I have a really good memory, but then I was like, and so the process of writing a book is, I was like, I don't know if it like was good or bad. Like part of it's like really good because you get your thoughts out, but at the same time, when you have to keep going and re-editing it, rereading it, and it was definitely quite a process, emotionally, lots of tears. But I knew that in the end, like the final product, someone reads it, and there are so many women and men who reach out and say, like, wow, I thought I was alone.
Mm,
I thought I was the only one who had all of this trauma and dealing with mental illness in the family. And so in the end, it was a lot to write and put out there, and the story's there. It's very raw, dirty. Everything is out there, and I'm like, this is who I am. So now nothing is kept silent. And
yeah.
as your podcast, like literally, like everything is in the book. And I'm like, but now I have nothing to hide.
Right. And in that way, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it there has to be an aspect of it that feels good. Does it feel like a relief in some ways?
It does, because when it was getting released, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I know why.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I'm helping people, but then I'm like, did I say too much? Did I over,
We
did I
overshare.
over, clearly that's my personality, overshare. Here it is. But then I'm like, whatever, I'm human. We're all human.
Yeah.
And there was nothing wrong with it. And it's my story, and we all have a story, and there's no shame in how we grew up, the choices we made, um, anything, as long as you're just not an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Oh, makes sense. We think it'd be
Yeah.
easier, but yeah.
And it's not. And I think once we have that grasp that like it's life is not easy, whether you are given everything at birth and whatever everything quote unquote might be, or you had to work for something, and there's struggles no matter where you what environment you're raised in, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to do, is just opening up those conversations and being a community as a whole of humanity, and being there for everyone and anyone, because we're here on this earth together.
Yeah.
So somehow we can all make this place better.
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah, that is the goal for sure. Um I've been asking my friends this, but now I'm starting to ask my guests this. Um and this might feel like a shift, but I just kind of love it. What makes you feel sexy? Now, my biggest thing is that a lot of what makes me feel sexy has nothing to do with sex or being
But
sexual at all. I'm just curious.
I feel sexy and
Hmm.
confidence
Yeah.
to go for anything, try anything, and go against the society's view of like what a woman should do. I never think of my physical
Parents.
being,
Yeah.
appearance as like what makes me feel sexy. It for me, it's confidence. And even I think Bobby, my husband, would say like I take risk in a good way
Hmm.
because I'm confident in that way. And if you don't take risk in a positive way, um, then you always wonder. And there's definitely nothing that I wonder if I could do in life, because I just do it.
Yeah.
And I might fail, and I might not. I might
Yeah.
succeed. I most likely succeed.
I love that.
Um, confidence.
Yeah. I agree. Totally agree.
I think I look good naked
You what?
too.
Sorry.
But I think I look good naked too.
I have a feeling that you do. I wouldn't doubt it. Uh, um, yeah, I mean, and for me, confidence is a big one for me in my relationship with my husband, in my relationship with myself, in my job, everything.
And you have to have a lot of confidence in your job. I
Yeah,
mean, it's got to be the most competitive.
it's a competitive field. I always try to put that lightly.
I don't, I would
Oh no,
assume.
it for sure is. I I kind of feel like I've always liked to think about it being a competition with myself,
Hmm.
because we are, as an actor, as far as auditioning and working, you're responsible for your performance. People can tweak it and
Yeah.
edit it, and it might not always end up being the best, or the best version of you that you thought would be out there, but you're still responsible for that performance. It doesn't it Other people don't really matter, but that's hard to say when you're in the moment. Yeah, it's a
But I get too, like even like in the wellness space or fitness industry, and I'm like, oh, I'm not, there it's people will say oversaturated, but to like really climb to, the top. But at the same time, even if you're at the top, you're like, did I do that good enough? Was I
yeah,
could I have done better? You're always your own like worst critic.
yeah,
And you're like, I had to learn to just be like, let it go.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely that moment. Otherwise, it'll just kind of like eat you alive, and that's not worth it. That and rejection. So yeah, confidence is. I found my confidence in different ways, and I feel sexy when I'm confident. I feel sexy during self care, or whatever that means, whether that's like I'm getting a massage, or um, taking 10 minutes for myself just to have a break, or moms always joke about, and dads, sorry, parents always joke about that shower. It's like, wait, this is essential. It's not a luxury, but for whatever reason, a, a shower sometimes feels like a luxury. um
Mhm.
yeah, the little things. But yeah, taking time for myself, doing my hair. you know
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's cool. Thanks for answering that. It's a funny one, but I think in that way too, it's important. And like the conversation, and the way people talk about sex and sexiness, and there's a lot of taboo in there, but I I'm all for feeling sexy, and that means so many different things to so many different people, and that's why I love that question being answered. Um, but yeah, this was so fun. What's up next for you? What's coming up?
Up next, well, with Tone It Up, we have a new program in the app for the summer, which
Nice.
is moving your body. I'm doing a challenge right now with the big silence, which is calm heart, quiet mind. And I have a bunch of friends. I think I mentioned it to you on
Yeah.
text. Uh, I know this comes out later, but it's just about expressing through social media and sharing like what makes you have a calm heart and quiet mind and your mental health, and building community and sharing that and having that mental health message. And we have programming, we have tournaments coming up with sports and mental health at thebigsilence.com. Make sure you sign up there. I'm just on the mission to make the world a better place, one little us at a time.
I
We
love
can all
that.
do it.
I really love that. And I will link all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big silence will be heard. um,
And in the you're wondering, it's like, the things that we don't talk about.
yeah.
Overshare here. We we talk about it, break the stigma on mental health and those hard conversations, and obviously the podcast, which you're going to be
Yeah.
on, and just all those hard conversations that make us all just feel like we're the same. Like we all have these experiences and experiences in life, good, bad, in between, hopefully more good, and
Yeah.
just be there.
Thank you for always spreading a positive message. And a lot of that is just being real, because kind of like we had mentioned earlier, life isn't easy. There's lots of downs, but there are lots of ups, and that in itself is positive, just sharing that people aren't alone. It was wonderful talking to you. I'm so excited for people to hear you and know about you, that don't already. And this was great. I'm gonna have
Okay.
an extra great day now that I've spoken to you, so I appreciate it.
Aw, thank you.
Yeah,
Same. Thank you, Sasha.
absolutely. And that's a wrap on another empowering episode of Women in the Nude. The conversation doesn't stop here. Stay connected with us by following us on Instagram, Women in the Nude Podcast, for behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, thought-provoking quotes, and updates on upcoming episodes. Subscribe to us on YouTube for full-length video podcasts, Sasha Pieterse, as well as visiting our website, Women in the Nude Podcast, for more resources and past episodes. Thank you for joining us on this naked journey to wellness and self-love. Remember, vulnerability is strength, and by sharing our stories, we empower each other. Special thanks to my amazing producer, Hudson Sheaffer, aka my hot husband, for making this podcast possible.